Yeah, and in the vein of Europe, I know Kieran, who's in the chat, he's talked about this publicly, so I don't think he'll mind me mentioning that he went back to university during the pandemic because he's a photojournalist,
Mhm.
so he couldn't go out and
Mhm.
about and do that. But went back to finish his degree at the university and wanted on he was writing on his topic having to do with Black Lives Matter, and he was saying something very controversial about that organization, and he was subsequently actually the victim of a university attempted mobbing in the UK.
Mhm.
Um, and it all worked out well because he managed to win that argument and graduate
Mhm.
with honors. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
despite the attempt of his fellow students to actually get as I recall, and Kieran can correct me if I'm wrong, the petition was that the university shouldn't award a degree to this journalist who's professing these ex race, I think they called them racist ideas or something like that.
Mhm.
So there is
It's very easy. Yeah, it's very easy to be called racist. You know, some people called our merit paper racist apology, which
I
is
saw that.
so you say that people should be judged by their merit. So we shouldn't use people immutable characteristics for, you know, making appointments and award, and they say it's racist apology.
Yeah, we can
Mhm.
save things here. Actually, yeah, Kieran was mentioning this was what got said about him. He was called
Should not.
mentally deficient because of his project for one of his courses.
That's actually very good. I like it, mentally deficient. Ah, that's beautiful. Now, why I like it? Because when people say that the comparison between Soviet times and current situation is hyperbolic, like in Soviet time during Brezhnev, they at some point came to the realization that it's like almost 70 years past revolution, and all people coming from all these hostile classes, they already died, and we have like several generations of new people. And how come we have dissidents? So and then they came. It kind of contradicts the idea that socialist ideas win out, and they came with this brilliant idea that people that oppose regime, they are not dissidents, they are mental. They have sluggish schizophrenia, and they should be subjected to mental treatment. So they have this punitive psychiatry type of arrangements where many dissidents were put into this, and some were like, turned to vegetable state because they weren't just the prison. They really subjected these people to treatment. And recently, I heard about the case in the US. A student in a medical school, I believe, was taking part of mandatory diversity training session where they were taught about microaggressions, and the student challenged the idea of microaggressions, that they are exist and that they are significant. So the student was expelled, I think it was medical program, and recommended to undergo psychological assessment because he objected to this idea. So the student sued and won. So that was a success case. But is it hyperbolic comparison to paint people who disagree with the current orthodoxy as mentally deficient? Well, so you
Yeah,
judge.
I didn't know this, Kieran. You didn't tell me this one. That apparently it was the acting head of the psychology school.
Of course, so it's even better. So it's someone with authority to declare you're mentally deficient. Yeah. I mean, so here, if you're interested about this, so that's another book which I read recently called Judgment in Moscow. So by Soviet dissident Bukovsky, Vladimir Bukovsky.
Okay.
And this book, it's very little commentary of him, but it's mostly copies of memoranda from Central Committee of Communist Party that he managed to get hold of, photocopy, and bring out. And it has parts that document these conversations among Central Committee about this psychiatric asylums where dissidents should be put, because of course a normal non-mental people cannot object, cannot oppose the regime. And
Yeah,
uh,
that's really fascinating. I didn't know that was a thing, to just in the Soviet Union to start calling people mentally deficient, and it goes back
uh,
to the
I
history.
may, yeah, I may even find some quotes, if you give me a moment, which I
Sure.
think were great, that describe the symptoms of this sluggish schizophrenia that was the most prominent diagnosis for these dissidents. Here I have. Uh, so yeah, diagnosis sluggish schizophrenia. Symptoms included. So listen: pessimism, poor social adaptation, and conflict with authorities. Also, additional red flags that would justify this diagnosis: reform delusions. If you argue for reforms, right? So that, or perseverance.
Holy
So that's, well, it's like me, right? I keep writing these papers. So that's right there. And the last one: struggle for the truth.
You're kidding.
No, I am not. I totally not.
And
So yeah,
and this was a symptom of, if I heard you right, sluggish schizophrenia, or
yeah. And they also use this term, which was very common. It's like philosophical intoxication. So if you disagree with ideas, but yeah, this guy Bukovsky, so he has several books, also his autobiographical books, which is much shorter. I can send you PDF. It's translated in English, where he described how he himself got subjected to this. And he get it kind of lucky, because he was not subjected to actual treatments. He just spent some time in this mental asylum for assessment, which yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
amazingly creepy. And yeah, I the reason it dawns on me that it's amazingly creepy, yeah, and this is that I know with some of the social emotional learning stuff that's being promoted in K through 12, there's this whole kind of mindset that certain behaviors are bad that would fall into that list
Mhm,
actually. So that's where I'm just like, that's just bloody scary reading that and knowing what I've heard. This again, talking with Deb Philman at The Reason We Learn, she's actually uncovered quite a fair bit of this, and James Lindsay is going after it too.
mhm,
With that kind of commentary lately, noticing that that seems to be a thing, to just start labeling people who disagree as there's something wrong with you mentally, which
mhm, mhm.
is
Yep,
extremely disturbing.
yep. It's another idea that was tried successfully before.
Successfully in terms of shutting people down, yes, but not. Did you like that video? Are you curious about the rest of the video? Because that clip came from an episode of SciChat Saturday, and the full episode is linked in the description. As always, stay curious.